Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, November 24th Park and Rec Task Force. Again, Mike Sable. I work for the city. I am your host and guide and facilitator for tonight's meeting. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I do want to do some quick round of introductions, and if folks jump on later, we can just have them go. Partially, I want to hear your voice and test your audio, and also just because I'm curious, what is something you're looking forward to doing on this extended long weekend? Maybe it's a new family tradition that you're going to start, or a new food that you're looking forward to, or some kind of an activity for the benefit of the group. I'll go first. Again, I'm Mike Sable. One of the things I'm looking forward to is the State Fairgrounds has a holiday light display that you can drive through. And I have tickets for 7:45 tomorrow. So I'm going to be, I'll let you know how it goes, but my kids are really looking forward to that. They're big fans of the holiday season. So that's me. In the order that we will go tonight, we'll do Audra, then Dorothy, then Nolan. So Audra,
okay.
What are you up to?
Well, since we're doing like most people and staying home and having a small Thanksgiving dinner, the people in my house voted and we decided we are going to have pie and some other traditional Thanksgiving foods, but we are having as our main entree, we're having enchiladas because that's what everybody wants. So we're mixing it up a little bit this year.
Good for you. Your audio sounds good. Dorothy, then Nolan, then Bao, please.
I live alone and I'm going to be living alone on Thanksgiving. So that'll be a new tradition. I usually have everybody and cook the big traditional dinner, but that's not happening this year. I'm going to see if I can find somebody, my neighbor maybe, that I've had some contact with to bring my Christmas tree up from the basement. And I might spend Thanksgiving starting the decorations.
Oh, good for you. Well, be safe and make sure to reach out and use the phone a lot. Your audio sounds good. Nolan, then Bao, then Neil, please.
Nolan Cornell. I think I look forward to not having to do anything this weekend. So we'll see if that carries out, because I have a feeling it won't.
Well, good luck.
Something though. Nolan, you're just a little quiet, so when you get a chance next time, just use speak a little bit louder next time. That would be good. Bao, Neil, and then Mike, please.
Hi everyone, this is Bao. Let's see. I already got the Christmas tree up. Christmas decorations already up in my house.
Wow.
Since I love Christmas, so my house already looks like Mike, your background there. See, Thanksgiving this year falls on my baby's birthday, so we're going to just have family member drive through. I gave it our window for anyone who wants to pop in and sing her happy birthday. Otherwise, everybody else is doing FaceTime. And we're going to just social distance and not even celebrate Christmas together.
So. All right. Well, good. That's I enjoy that and say happy birthday for us. Your audio sounds good. Neil, then Mike, then Beth, please.
Well, my birthday also falls on Thanksgiving this year, so it's a share of there's a good birthday scenario going on there. I'm also going to enjoy, our family is going to enjoy actually not going between multiple houses frantically on a holiday. So we decided today I'm going to make prime rib in the oven. So we're going to see how that goes.
Good. Mike, then Beth, and then we'll add on whoever joins us after.
Hi, everybody. Mike Erickson. We normally have 27 people over for Thanksgiving. So we're going down to 4. So it'll be, her 2 daughter comes home from college tomorrow, and older daughter's boyfriend will be over. So it will be just the 5 of us. And we'll have to cut the turkey in half and freeze the rest. But our tradition always is that first Saturday, we'll be out at Kruger's Tree Farm in Lake Elmo cutting down our Christmas tree.
Fun. Well, be safe. Your audio sounds good. So have some fun this weekend. Beth, introduce us. How's your audio today?
This is Beth Wattrud. I currently reside in Little Canada, and I'm with the NEU Soccer Club. And we don't really do traditions, but we normally do get together with family. This year we'll probably just have something small at my house, invite my dad and brother over, but still eat lots of good food and just be safe.
Good. Thank you. Your audio sounds good. For tonight's meeting, this is actually kind of the working part of the session. So what I'm going to do, I will periodically share my screen so you can kind of see through the agenda what we're going to work on. What I've discovered and what Audra and I discovered is that when we did the other task forces, sometimes it's helpful to have a whiteboard that's open so people can free think. And what I'll try to do is as you talk, I'll type, and that way we can kind of record our recommendations as we go. So sometimes you'll miss seeing each other's faces. So just remember what everybody looks like, and we'll go back from screen to things. But what I will do is I'm going to share my screen over here. Just a reminder that our agenda today, we go till 7. If we end early, we end early. We'll go through brief, we'll review what the YMCA conversation from last session. We'll talk about discussing recommendations and developing recommendations in these 6 broad categories. You can get a sense for what those look like. This next section is somewhat arbitrary, but you got to have a deadline and a timeline on certain things. And so just for the sake of the group, we'll talk about some short-term immediate things in the next 6 months, some medium-term things in the next year and a half, and then long-term 3 years and beyond. So if you can think about those 3 time horizons, that would be helpful. Our next meeting topic and agenda is actually going to be this work. So don't be surprised if this takes more than 1 meeting, and then we will end. So there's no questions on the agenda. I do want to kind of go through and just real quick go through. As a reminder, if you're ever curious about what you said at a meeting, we do record them and put them on the website so you can go back and watch, or if there's a certain thing you wanted to go back to, you certainly can. We have links to that on our website as well. But really, the YMCA conversation was the bulk of our time last time. I tried to capture as much of Chris's notes as I could. But really, Chris Cost manages 3 YMCAs in the region: Hudson, White Bear Lake, and the Maplewood Community Center. They're kind of back to about 50%, 55%. Now, obviously, this was before the governor's order shutting down gyms. So, right, the YMCA today is down to 0. So take that piece of information out, but I think it's important to at least acknowledge. The Maplewood Community Center is operating at a higher capacity than otherwise in the region. I think, it was interesting when Chris talked about lessons learned from other parts of the country. They got smarter and they got better. So that was an important part. They typically offer about 10 sports, 7 dedicated to youth, 3 for adults. They're seeing more interest in adult sports lately. The Y, it really wants to do outreach to families, but their marketing dollars are scarce. And I think they're scarce even in good times. I think they have a hard time with marketing because it's just so hard to have broad engagement. They really are interested in the idea of partnership. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing, look to the group and say, is there anything that stuck out for you? Either that you thought about or you learned about or you paid attention to, or some kind of revelation from the last time you met. What's something that stuck out for you that was new from our last conversation?
Well, first off, Mike, thanks for putting that on the website, because I took copious notes from the last time and I went back over it and was matching things up. And I think the fact that you got a lot of information, I was able to go back even the meeting before and pull some of that information to see how we're tracking things. So I think the key there is certainly the partnerships in some way, shape, or form. It's got to be something like that. Knowing full well, who was it? Someone sent it. Was Vicky or Bao sent the thing that Mounds U had parted ways with the YMCA here a few weeks back, and Mounds U is going to have to come up with their own park and rec program.
Mm-hmm. Good. Others, and Audra and Neil, feel free to weigh in too. You're immersed in this group, so don't be shy. All right. Not everybody at once. I'm
Just looking at
joking.
the mic, sorry.
No, that's quite all right. As always, you can use the chat function if that's easier for you. But one of the things that I'm going to change my screen over really quickly, and I'm going to show and demonstrate kind of as we talk about what developing recommendations looks like. I'm going to show you my screen so you can get a sense for kind of what we were looking for. You know, one of the things that was identified early on is that the city owns parks. The city has land. The city has a building. Those are physical assets that are really valuable and really important. And that became something that was really important early on for this group to sort of identify that, you know, that's a really big piece for a recommendation. And so in terms of thinking about it, you know, we could say we recommend in the next 6 months something. We would, and then we would recommend in the medium term something, and we would recommend long term something. And when we did this work with the Nature Center Task Force, you know, that is a physical structure, and so that had a sort of a slightly different. There's a sense of urgency about getting the structure open. So and this is an example. They said really early on that we would recommend putting some staff there for each day just to make sure that the building is cared for. It was a really simple short-term recommendation that preserved the asset over the long term, or in the short term, and then it actually made it more viable in the long term. And so I think this format can work as folks are thinking about what are the things that we need to do. We have physical assets. We have this partnership prioritization piece. We have the service levels and business model. Again, this is what I would describe as the Neil chart, which is youth sports, youth programs, adult sports, adult programs, and then this broad category of virtual. What would we recommend in the short and the long term? I know that the concept of regional partnerships came in there. What would we recommend in each of those areas? What do we talk about in terms of money and financing? And then lastly, this piece about values and philosophy. And I think one of the things that we can do is it doesn't have to be done in a specific order. I can jump between categories, but if we can try to go sequentially, it's going to be easier for note taking. And then what I would propose to do, and this is, if you just think about it, this is kind of just your best ideas on paper. We will send this out, and then people who aren't on the call can weigh in, and then we can also get them refined a little bit. So if there's if it's a loose idea, but somebody can make it a sharper idea, there's some back and forth, and we can spend some time doing that. So any objection to the flow of this? Like I said, I'm going to put the screen up on there and type as best I can, knowing that you're going to have to suffer through watching me how badly I type. But any objection to this kind of a flow? And what I would encourage folks to do is to just share their thoughts. And the more that we can capture in real time, and I know Audra and Neil are great sources of information. So if you have an idea and they jump in and say, well, that's not going to work because of this, they get to call that because they know how it works. And so, but the whole goal is to get as many recommendations as we can develop and then refine them into something that makes sense that we can deliver to the city council. So any objection to the process so far? Does it make sense?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to share my screen then again, and I'm going to say who would like to offer up a recommendation in one of the categories regarding to either the building or the fields or the play areas of the parks. I open it up to the group, and I'm monitoring chat if you want to pop them in there.
Well, I think
Okay,
Mike.
I don't know.
Go ahead,
Go ahead.
Dorothy.
I think under physical assets and short term,
Mhm.
we need to do an evaluation of what we've got and what must be taken care of in the short term, that it doesn't get out of hand. If it's, hockey rinks or whatever we've got going for the winter, there needs to be some oversight short term, that we just don't lose them long term.
So we would recommend that we evaluate existing properties and assets, rinks, buildings, fields to be sure that we take care of them. Does that sound right?
Yep.
That's it's about as complicated as I wanted to make it. I think that's a terrific recommendation. I think it's something that makes sense. It's something that we can do. And then, so that's the kind of thing that we're looking for. So Dorothy, thanks. Mike Erickson, you were going to say something.
I was similar to what Dorothy had said, but just to make sure that with current staff that we are like the Nature Center, physically inspecting them either on a daily or a weekly basis, whatever our physical assets. I know the YMCA, they've got that one, but to make sure that what we have is, you don't have a broken water pipe or something like that, particularly during the winter. And I know with the Bruin Truck Farm, we do make those daily and weekly inspections to make sure. And we did actually have a pipe burst here with some of that cold, and thank goodness we caught it right away. But had we not performed daily or weekly routine maintenance, we wouldn't have caught it.
Okay.
And Mike, if I could just jump in here again, I think this is great for the list, but just to put people's minds at ease, the park maintenance staff, that is exactly what we're doing. I mean, we have been, even with the shutdown, and even if we weren't scheduling our own league games, the fields were being taken care of. The irrigation systems have now been shut down. I mean, they're still doing everything that they did before, just even while we're in the holding pattern. So that hasn't stopped, and it will continue.
Thank you. That's peace of mind, Audra. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby.
Yeah. Other suggestions for short term, and this could be also, thinking longer term, long-term leases with partners, or I know that we've talked about associations potentially playing a larger role. How can those relationships play a role in maintaining fields or maintaining the asset? What does that look like, kind of as you think conceptually?
I feel like part of that might be kind of like we talked about the last meeting, is depending on what happened, like what the recommendation is and the business model for program delivery, that would change some of the medium and probably specifically long-term goals of the physical assets. So I think there's some things that would probably, with regard to physical assets, maybe have to kind of circle back to after some of the recommendations from the other places, or from some of the other categories. Is kind of my feeling on some of that.
Neil, thank you. That's a point that I wanted to make earlier. You're exactly right. We might have something down on financing that doesn't make it possible to do something elsewhere. And so they can't happen in a vacuum, but at a high level, trying to understand how all these pieces fit is an important piece. And thank you for bringing that up, because I neglected to do that. Let me go back, and I will try to go back and forth. Dorothy, go ahead.
I know our dial back right now is for a month. We don't know in a month if it's going to dial back more or if it's going to hold. Somehow we need to look in our short-term, long-term. How do we plan for the unknown? We don't know if in the spring we're going to be able to start up programs or not, with partners or not. So I don't know how we work that in, but somewhere we need to be thinking short-term, long-term with the pandemic.
So I'm going to write that as down here. We recommend building contingency plans for changes to pandemic, and it's part of our service model. So maybe as every youth program steps forward, and I'm looking at soccer, and I'm thinking you guys have probably talked about contingency plan A and B and C, and basketball has probably done it 5 times. So yeah, I think it's an important piece around service level and business model. Mike Erickson, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for short term, I wouldn't want to assume anything, but to review whatever cooperative agreements we have with our associations, whether or not it's a handshake, whether or not it's in writing, and or the school district as well for the use of the gyms. Now would be a good time to look at that and see if it's still good. And that's something that obviously Audra and Neil would be well aware of. And, you know, is there a way to improve it?
And are they operating agreements, Neil? What's the right term for these?
They're joint powers agreements, Mike, and actually
Okay.
we no longer have the one with District 622 at Carver Elementary. That one was terminated this summer, partly due to programming and budget, but also because Carver is doing a huge add-on
Remodel.
to the school, and they're
Yep.
remodeling, and they're having different uses. So it was a good time for that one. We do currently have our agreement with District 623 at Edgerton Community Gym. So that partnership is still in effect. And then when we use the gyms with community ed, it was always through a facility rental. I mean, we actually paid for those services. We would apply for, the space, and then they would grant those based on usage and if it was serving the youth versus adults and people in the community. But we did pay a fee for those, and we also did the same with the YMCA and would pay a fee to use the gym space there for some of it.
Or 623 and YMCA?
Yes.
So one of those physical asset pieces to look at gym usage and fee structure for those two things. And then I also added evaluating joint powers agreements with associations, with school districts, and community and gym agreements. So that's both a partnership piece and an asset thing, because the gym is a really important physical asset. There's only so many gyms. There's only so many hours in a day that you can use it. So it becomes really important to manage those well. So I appreciate that.
Hey, Mike, just for clarification, I don't want to assume everybody knows, but we have two school districts. 622 is North St. Paul, Maplewood, Oakdale, and 623 is Roseville, just for clarification, if that means anything to Neil and Audra, of course, you know that.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Sometimes we just assume, right?
Okay. Going back to the physical asset conversation, what are some of the medium-term or longer-term things that you can think of that would be important for Neil and Audra to work on, or that would be important things for maybe the Rec and Park Commission to start to work on longer term? And Audra and Neil, this could be a little bit of kind of your wish list or your work plan as well. So if you have certain things that you're looking for, what would that look like?
Well, I'll jump in and I'll say, we talk about these partnerships and moving forward with other entities, but I think really examining and kind of looking at what, again, we have to offer them and what they would have to offer us. And I know it's down at the very bottom of the list, so I don't want to get into it too much now, but just with the whole values and what you're hoping to gain through the programming and things that you offer. And I missed the meeting, unfortunately, with the Y. I was on vacation, but I was happy to hear that, they talked about what was important to them with their philosophy and values and aligning and just putting that up against, and again, we can talk about later, but our Parks and Recreation Department's mission and vision statement and our guiding principles, just to make sure that we are reaching out to groups that maybe don't have that same philosophy and value system, because I think that's important. So I think spending a little more time kind of, investigating that makes some sense. Is this too out of order? Because I can read our mission and vision statement just so people know in our principles, or is that going to save that for later? I don't want to jump the order.
Well, I'm just going to say, Audra, I'm going to try to jump to and from as we go. But in terms of the values and philosophy, we recommend identifying and aligning our values with potential partners. What do we do well and what do we want? What do they want and what do they need, right? There has to be this kind of, it's almost a little bit like
find the right fit.
Yeah, it's a pro-con list, right? Well, we're really good at taking care of fields and they're really good at playing sports on them. I mean, that sort of makes some, that's a gross oversimplification, but that's kind of what
Right.
it doesn't have to be, this is hard, but it doesn't have to be complicated, I guess maybe is what I'll say.
And without reading the vision and mission statements, one thing I can say, I think the guiding principles that we based what the department stands for and came out of that whole master planning process was the guiding principles are making sure we have safe and welcoming parks.
Audrey, you're cutting out a little bit. Lean a little in, please.
How's that? Better?
Nope.
No? Uh-oh.
Hang on. Just a little bit of lag there.
I'll try again. Uh-oh.
It's not working right now.
You can come back to me.
See, that one worked, but the reading didn't. So
All right. I wonder what the reading was blocking. I'll read out of the side here. So
it could be. That sounds good.
Try to remember. So having safe and welcoming parks, connecting people with places, that accessibility component is really important in breaking down those barriers to people using our parks, encouraging health and wellness, promoting environmental stewardship. That's a big thing with the city, is making sure whatever groups we partner with have the same environmental standards and aspirations as we do, inspiring creativity and learning, and then of course financial sustainability. So those are our guiding principles for everything that we do. And so we'd want to make sure that whoever we partnered with would have those same values. I think that would be important.
Audra, is that in your annual report?
I believe it might have been in the annual report, but it's actually in the Park Systems Master Plan and in the executive summary. So you can find.
I'm just pulling it up right now. Yeah, thanks.
Sure.
So interestingly, whatever you did there worked. So if the paper was in front of the screen, it worked fine. So thank you for that.
Right.
So I did try to capture, one of these recommendations, right, is to document and share these values with others. Right? That's a really clear understanding of where we're at and where our partners are at. Going back to the physical asset in terms of what a medium-term thing, one of the things that was identified early on was we try to do an inventory of who our customers are. Is it, as the needs of the community change, do the assets that we have match what the future need is going to be? And so one of the things that I think is, we would recommend using the master plan or is that the right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They're guiding.
To guide decision-making on usage of, I'll just say facilities, because that can include a ball field, a soccer field, a building. If you have a huge growth in, if there's a baby boom or a lot of new families move in, it just changes the workload. So it doesn't have to be that, but I think that's an important part of understanding demographics.
It is, because as a matter of fact, again, some of you know this, but just literally recently in the last 1 to 2 years, we've seen baseball and softball fields taken out of production because baseball, they're just not playing anymore, and they've been converted either into soccer areas or open space, what have you. So right in front of our faces, we've got a really good plan. So.
And we're seeing tennis courts go to pickleball.
Yep. There you go.
Yeah. Is there anything that's in this physical asset piece that we are missing in terms of a high level or an important thing? Neil or Audrey, you're comfortable with?
We see the note board again.
Oh, did I get off of it? I'm sorry. I thought I was.
Unless I missed it.
No,
Maybe up there. Perfect.
there we go. Sorry, I go back and forth sometimes. So really, the physical assets are recommend evaluating existing ones, make sure we take care of them, maintaining our inspection procedures, evaluating gym usage at 623 and the MCC. This was just a theme about making sure that we're protecting what we have. Recommend using master plan information to guide decision-making on facilities, understanding our demographics, kind of using the pickleball example of, tennis is out, but pickleball is in. How do you adapt really quickly? Anything else that we would want to recommend, short, medium, or long-term regarding physical asset?
I mean, I don't know if we could look at something in the long term as identifying groups that need space and seeing if there's a way we can maybe tailor some space that isn't currently earmarked for that type of group, and see if there's a way to get them space based on what we have available.
Mm.
I like that. I'm thinking of Wakefield. Beautiful building, wonderful space. If we're not gonna be able to provide programming there, what can we do to create situations that people will want to rent it and we can bring in enough money to sustain it?
All right.
Mike, would it make sense to add, just put in parentheses or put survey somewhere on there? I mean, that would be a long-term goal, but maybe developing some kind of survey to get to that point. I don't know if that's medium or long-term.
Well, this is what's helpful is these things all touch each other. And so we can move them. I'm going to put it in the medium term because it'll help shape the long term. But if the group says it should go to the short term, we can certainly move it up faster or push it out later. But is there, when you think about this inventory or survey of possible users, is there a geography that you would want to stick to, or do you want to go with, you just say East Metro? Do you want to say, Twin Cities metro area? Do you want to say just Maplewood?
I would say Twin Cities metro area. I mean, personally, one of the things I thought of when I had that is there's a hurling group that was looking for space for a field, and depending on what we offer for programs or partnerships, whether there's that we didn't put them on a soccer field because we were using them, but was there other space that we could actually retrofit to use? And that's kind of what I was saying, like whether it doesn't have to necessarily be a local group. That was my kind of thought, but I don't know if anybody else has any feedback on that.
Okay. And I can make it a little bit bigger for. Bao agrees with you, Neil. Let's stick to Twin Cities, cast a wide net. So thank you. All right. If we think we're comfortable, we can always come back to it. Beth, go ahead.
I was I was trying to look at the Maplewood site really quick to have like a map, and then with like little icons of the fields, the courts, the diamonds available, like just so you could kind of visualize better like what's at that park, and trails, fields, courts, diamonds, maybe an amphitheater, but just like a big map so we can kind of visualize where everything is.
I put GIS because I know that's a government acronym thing that I love. So I know what it means, and I'll fill it in better later. But yeah, good. Others. Seeing none. Now, let me also just say really quickly for the group, and I'll stop sharing and then I'll come back. Whatever we recommend, we're missing people who aren't on the call. So we're going to send this out and they can continue to add more things. And then you can actually add more things too, right? I always have my best idea after the meeting. And so we'll be able to share it with you. And so you can say, oh, you know what? I forgot about these two things that I wanted to say. There's a chance to modify this between the meetings. And so we'll be able to refine this as we go. So don't consider this a finished product at all, but really think of it as a whiteboard for brainstorming. So let me go back and share. I'm going to switch to our favorite topic, which is partnership and prioritization. This is a rich area for discussion. It has been since we started. We've identified a couple of short-term things about existing agreements and about evaluating what we really want out of a partnership. What does it look like to pull together a partnership, and what are some of the things that we would recommend that we do in the next 6 months, in the next year and a half, and then really long term? Who has an idea related to partnership and prioritization? Dorothy, is that? Oh, you're muted, Dorothy. Sorry about that. I can't hear you, unfortunately. Try it again. Oh, now I
You must
lost.
be signing off and coming back. Mike.
All right, maybe that's what's happening. Mike, you.
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Go ahead.
And this is for Neil and Audra. And I'll just say it from familiarity. The whole partnership, the listing of and making up the lists of, I'll just use the example of the basketball. We've got obviously Nolan on the call from South St. Paul, but the other communities that we partner with and use their gyms. And so, going over to White Bear Lake and playing basketball in their gyms, identifying all of those, because there are a lot. And are there more? Neil, you can rattle them off like nobody else, but do we have? Are we still with St. Croix Prep over in Stillwater, sort of drawing a big circle? I like the idea of East Metro or Twin Cities, but there's a lot of people we partner with.
Dorothy, you want to try chatting?
I think I might be back on.
You are. You sound great.
But I forgot what I was going to say, so it doesn't matter. See, that's what happens.
That's all right. It'll come back to you, I'm sure. So it's nice to have you back. Beth or Nolan, anything in partnerships or BOW, anything that you want to add in on either the chat or the conversation about, you're obviously key partners in this conversation.
Well, we obviously would love to partner with you guys, or at least, share in this, because we need your fields and we need kids to play in the area. So now my half of my family just came. You want to see my little doggy?
Oh, hey.
Oh, you funny. But yeah, we would love to, and figure out, exactly what you guys do good at and what we do good at and how we can work together.
Do you think that can be done best in a survey? Is it a kind of a sit down interview with each of the leaderships of the associations? What do you think would be a better approach from your standpoint?
Probably, to sit down. I would take a look at what your partnerships are right now, what you guys do good at, what you guys need or want. And then you would probably meet with the people that you want to partner with and figure out if it could work or not. Oh, sorry.
All right. So I did invite existing partners and interview the associations for their needs going forward. I mean, that's kind of a really practical short-term thing that might yield a lot of results. So Other examples or other things that you'd like to see in terms of partnership, maybe longer term? Go ahead, Dorothy.
I'm thinking about the why and the partnerships there.
Mm-hmm.
And going forward, I'm a little worried about financially where they're going to be. I don't know how they can continue to sustain it with the
Mhm.
levels that they were at and how much we can count on them as a viable financial partnership. Something to think about.
Mhm.
I think that might be a good place for me to, I wasn't sure where to add this thought in, but in the past over the years, partnerships is really a huge part of what we have done. I mean, that's always been our department, but I think what it is how will these partnerships look now with the changes and the financial constraints and what's the changes in our department? It's like trying to rethink these partnerships is really, I mean, we've been lucky enough to have really great partners in the community, but we just have to think how they can be reimagined. And I think that's going to be a main goal for this section of what we do.
Yeah, not all partnerships are equal.
Right.
Mhm.
So how they can change. And again, I think that it was down in the philosophy values part, but I really think it's going to be important to drive what actions we take based on coming up with what we, like you said, Beth, what we do well, what another group does, how those needs fit together, and finding those best matches, I think is really going to be crucial. So.
You know, one of the things that has come up repeatedly is the relationship with the schools and community ed, and they're not in a position to act now, right? They're trying to keep their kids safe, and they're right. And Nolan, you know, right, and in your house. So their focus is different. How do you want to involve the schools beyond this year, or beyond longer term? What are some things that you would want to see happen with regard to the school districts?
I would think, at minimum, maintaining the current partnerships and agreements you have with the districts, or as best as you can. I mean, I would assume that not everything is going to be able to continue on per se. That was fine last year. It may not work for next year, but I think as a small goal is at least try to maintain that, and then that way you can build off of what you still have, and find other areas that you might be able to build on more versus
Mm-hmm.
area C where you may not be able to
Mm-hmm.
expand it much, or maybe it's not even worth it,
Mm-hmm.
and cutting that and putting more focus elsewhere. So.
Another thing that I had thought of, and I'll just throw it out to this group, is, and Neil can speak to it because he's been sitting on many more of those calls than I have, but just after the start of the pandemic, with all the changes and trying to keep up with what can we do, what can't we do, what's safe, we have these calls where they have the group calls and everyone can weigh in and get feedback from other cities and departments, but maybe this would be something once we identify partners where, if nothing else, we maybe have a Zoom call or some kind of connection where we can at least keep up with who's struggling with what or that, and that might build some partnership that way, and ways to partner might come kind of organically out of that. So maybe just developing that kind of network might be a good idea on a smaller level.
Good idea.
Yeah, Emma, I took everything you said, right? Create a regional, and then I'm going to share my screen because I moved off of that. So I actually wrote on there, to Nolan's point, we recommend maintaining existing relationships with school districts. They're focusing on other things right now, help them focus beyond this year. And then Audrey, you wrote, create a regional information system across city boundaries. I'm going to put that into the regional cooperative piece, because and I'm going to say recommend creating a regional information sharing system across city boundaries. I think that's an interesting piece. You know, somebody has to be the glue.
Yep.
And, you know, sometimes you're just looking for glue and not to be, you know, you're just looking for somebody to be the link. And if that can be us, and if that's something that this group thinks will be really important long-term, let's put it in there. So other suggestions in terms of partnership ideas or long-term things?
I've got a thought, and it's not fully formed, so let me ramble a bit.
Sure.
I can remember back when Blaine had a few soccer fields.
Mhm.
And it seems like they really promoted that and they used that to their advantage. And now look what they've got for soccer and other activities at Blaine. Is there an activity where there's a need that's not being met, that we could provide the need? Is there some kind of game that people are playing now that they didn't before, and we have space that we could do that and promote it and become that go-to spot for whatever that activity is?
Great idea, Dorothy.
What's the game that we built the field for the Hmong over in Keller?
I can't pronounce it, but
Sorry. Tulu and Takra.
That's
Okay,
it.
is that something that there's a need for more space for that? And we can become a destination and provide the facilities and whatever's needed for that to be the place that everybody who wants to play those games come to Maplewood to do it. Like people now go to Blaine for soccer.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I tried to capture that as a kind of a longer term 36-month thing. I think that's really good. I mean, that's the
That's long range thinking and planning involved in it too.
Yep.
So.
You know, and this is an aside, but you know, there are certain you know, the city of Hopkins did that. They built one of the first cricket pitches in the Twin Cities region because a lot of their residents worked at Cargill, they worked at United Health Group, and so they had this sort of natural employment base, and they recruited those employees to say, listen, we know that you like to recreate doing this on the weekends. Why don't you come move to Hopkins? And that was almost an economic development incentive to try to draw people. So, I mean, there really can be a pretty smart way to do this if you find the right audience and find the right niche. There's a way to make it actually economic development argument for recreation activities. Sorry, I'll take my city manager hat off and I'll get back on to.
No, but that's Mike. That's good. It's good to hear that side of it. Yeah, because we could point right around the metro and point to, yep, that's what they're known for. Yep, that's what they're known for.
Mhm.
Yep.
Every city has a that's what they're known for, whether they like it or not. So there's a we're similar to like retail stores. Everybody's got a reputation, and you gotta manage yours. Bao, you popped up on the screen. Do you want to share something?
No,
Okay.
but since you asked me, I do want to just tell you that I agree with you on that. I know that Hopkins do have that bigger population from that community. And doing that is good. And we can also add to our survey to find out what do our Maplewood residents want to see. And we can take that from there to combine that with our, if you roll up your notes on community partners, and kind of pick and just kind of coordinate around there to see what we can put together so that we can serve our residents here in Maplewood, as well as our neighboring cities like Little Canada, for us to work together and have a develop like a further our community relationship as well.
All right, thank you. But at the end of the day, I will link these things that were, targeted outreach and then community surveys to identify those. So, any other pieces related to partnership that folks want to make sure that we capture? I think I'll add that this criteria for what makes a strong partner, it's an important conversation because both sides have to give something to make a partnership really great. And so really understanding what makes a strong partner is, I think, a really important piece. So this isn't the end, so I'm going to jump down to the next one in terms of the service level and business model. And again, we had these kind of 5 categories that, if you remember the green chart, what would you recommend in terms of identifying the service level or the business model that we would want to offer? Thinking through kind of all the things that we've talked about.
Well, Neil did do the great survey, and he would know that like the back of his hand. I can pull it up here in a second, but doing with our associations that we work with, doing what we do best, and with Audra as well, what we do best, identifying which is which, city, school district, association. And getting, like with Nolan, they're a great partner. South St. Paul's been a great partner for youth basketball for several years.
All right. And I'm going to throw the YMCA in that category too, because they're a big piece.
I think short term, we still have to keep the pandemic in mind. And it's going to give us strong guidelines on where we can start moving back in and where we have to hold back. Did you hear me?
Yep, I did hear you. I'm typing as I go, so I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was deep in thought trying to capture that.
Okay.
And I'll just say, get through this phase. Just for fun, because you forgot what everybody looked like. I want to jump over and make sure I'm not just you're staring at a blank screen. The service level business model piece is hard because it's the city touches all of them, but maybe doesn't deliver on all of them. And so, there is no programming identified in 2021 that's city funded. So this is one that maybe medium and longer term plays a sort of a more important role. We are going to survive the pandemic, but how do we come out really strong at the end of it? And I know it's hard to kind of get your mind into 3 years from now, but 3 years from now, what does our service level look like to adults? What does it look like to folks who want to play softball? What does it look like for folks who want to play basketball? What does it look like for kids who want to dance? What do those things look like in 3 years?
I think they're all going to be expanded, or maybe by 3 years they will diminish. But I think once things open up, people are going to be so excited to get out of the house and go anywhere just to do anything. And we're going to have to be ready for them.
I think to that extent, Dorothy, we saw all of the golf courses exponential because they could do it and do it safely. Some of our area golf courses figured it out with the golf carts, but we're talking, I saw numbers 20 to 30% over their best ever. So in that particular case, they had to change some things around, and I'm just using golf because that's an easy one, but they just had an outstanding summer for all of them, particularly the ones that are municipally owned.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Dorothy, I got to say, I would have never thought about that, but that makes perfect sense. There's going to be a huge demand that we're going to have to meet soon, 18 months from now. So that's the power of groups. So I appreciate you sharing that. Others?
I think, kind of going on what Dorothy said too about the increase in demand is just trying to capitalize on that and keep the momentum there, because I fear that everybody's been cooped up, everybody gets released, and you're going to have that huge spike of everybody wants to do everything, and then year 2, year 3, it's going to come back down, and you're going to lose a lot of that momentum. And if people kind of being like, I don't want to do this sport anymore, I don't want to do this anymore, and everybody gets settled back into their routines and life, and trying to capitalize to keep it up that higher level. That way you have maybe the income coming in to support the program better, or you have the numbers that can draw other communities or other participants in, because basketball, maybe somebody doesn't want to play with a certain city because maybe they don't draw that many competitive players there. But if you can keep that number up and you have the competitiveness, you're going to get more people wanting to come in and compete in that league, versus other ones.
So again, was trying to type and capture that. So there were about 3 things that I heard you say. Right, number one is to capture this demand surge. I think that's good. And then how do you sustain it? I'm going to take this one out because you could potentially charge more to offer higher level of service. The laws of economics apply to programming too. So when you maybe wanted to discount folks so we get lots of volume, you might actually say we would want to actually charge more to offer a little bit better service. And so you could actually think of your pricing model. So I'm going to move it. Not that it's not important, because it is, but I'm going to put it under the financial piece down here. And I'm going to think about it in the short run, because you got to plan 6 months in order to be successful in 18 months. But you could really charge more to offer a higher level of service. So that's how this stuff works. You just have an idea in one and you move it to the other. So I appreciate that. Other thoughts on service level business model, short and long term?
Mike, as it relates to what Dorothy had identified, and I don't know where this comes into it, but staying in, kind of like how Neil sent something out recently here to the staffers, staying in contact with your current part-time staff, or I'll use basketball, that's the easy one. Staying in contact with your referees and your scorekeepers, the pool of employees that are, patiently waiting on the sidelines. Neil has his people, but however he's going to communicate with them, and then the associations that we partner with in terms of being a member of the St. Paul Umpires Association. Our people want to get, but anyway, the whole important point is communication, that we're staying in contact. We had identified this a couple meetings back, how difficult it is to find good staffers and things like that. But when we talk about increased demand, we got to know that we're going to have X number of scorekeepers, X number of referees, and that they're still around, and that, how we're going to communicate this through certainly Maplewoods, but through, Nolan and his South St. Paul folks, the Montemetais, the White Bear Lakes, the Stillwaters. Yep.
I'll try to keep you guys around some little hours here and there, just in case. Then everyone's still keep everyone around a little bit.
Yep. Good. Well, that's an interesting thing that requires work, and that's a wonderful recommendation. Is to say, listen, don't lose your database. So, like I said, I'm gonna share back and forth just so you can remember what you all look like. But I'll go back. Any other thing that I'm missing, sort of short and long term? We're making remarkable progress. So this is, go ahead, Beth.
I was just thinking, break it all up so it doesn't seem like, oh my goodness, overwhelming. But, break up the youth sports or youth programs into seasons, and maybe you can list them all out, what you guys have done in the past and our ideas for the future. And then maybe circle the top 3 or 2 for that season and, concentrate on it. Or, just break things up so it's not so daunting or overwhelming.
Say a little bit more, because you're going to keep talking. I'm going to keep typing. So when you say break out the sports programming by season and highlight top 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. Just so you can list them all out, but then do the top 3 or so. And sorry, I'm a little distracted.
No, you got. Everyone has life at home, kids and pets and dinner and everything else. So don't worry about it.
I literally have. I have my dinner up here. That's why he's like, "What are you doing?"
That's good.
Why aren't you eating that, Mom? I'll eat that. But yeah. So then, where was I going to say?
So break out sports programming by season and highlight top 2 to 3 to focus on in each area as a way to capture changes in volume.
Yep, and then look around Maplewood, North St. Paul, Little Canada, Oakdale, and see what they really do well at, and again have a partnerships and figure out how to make it work all together. You're funny.
Or so what I said is look at other peer cities and see what they're choosing to focus on, and then fill the gap or use the other strengths. Right? It could be this is part of that, maybe that regional cooperation as well. So that's a good one, and I know that's hard because everybody wants to do everything and offer everything, and so going back to Audra's comment earlier about what do you need out of a good partner? What do we need out of Little Canada? And if Bryce were here, we would put him on the spot and demand that he answer it. But that's a fair question, and maybe one of the things that it just could be convene peer cities, share their goals and objectives, right? It'd be helpful to know what North St. Paul wants to do. It'd be helpful to know what Little Canada wants to do. And maybe that belongs in a regional thing, I'm not sure, but there's the good news is there's a lot of stuff to work with here. So the 36 months is empty in a lot of these categories, and that's not a judgment of good or bad. It's just a reality that our focus tends to be right now because it's pressing and it needs to be right now. So don't worry about it too much. I want to shift over to regional cooperatives, and like I said, it would be the one that I just wrote could go into this one. But when you think about kind of the regional approaches, what are some recommendations and things that you would have for a regional multi-city cooperative?
Maybe one of the first things too is finding out which communities or around us are currently practicing in various sports and activities in that kind of manner, and seeing if they're open for a conversation for additional or not, and just conversation about the process of getting it started and things like that.
Mm-hmm. I am typing on the other screen. I feel bad when people are staring at a blank Word document. It's not the most attractive thing to look at. So if I jump back and forth, I am still typing in all categories. So.
I want to just throw something out, and I don't think it goes in any of the categories that we're talking about, but Audrey, you had something from Park and Rec that came up on the Facebook page that was an activity, and I thought it was the most clever thing I had ever seen. And I'm sorry I can't remember which one it was, but I think that kind of communication and outreach to our community, for them to develop programs that they as families and neighborhoods can do, I thought that was excellent. And it's something that we can offer that doesn't have to have any participation other than that recipient who's reading it and saying, oh, that was a good idea, even if I can't remember what it was. Sorry.
Well, I think that does fit into, if it's not virtual programming, but it's sharing information. If we have we have a pretty sizable following on Facebook for our Parks and Recreation page, not so much Twitter, but just being able to share ideas. Like we'll post something that the DNR puts up. Neil, I don't know if we've done it yet, but we'll be posting again to remind people that Friday is the day that the state parks are free, so you can get outside and enjoy that. So we try to share other things that just fit with our mission, even if we're not offering them at the time. We can make sure we put that information forward, because the goal is to have it benefit as many people as possible. And you're right, that's something that we can do right now.
What was the last one that you did?
My son and I did one where we did like a paper towel rainbow kind of thing. Just
Yeah,
something that
yeah,
we
I
can
saw
do.
that.
Yep, and then
I've done a few different ones like that too, just other activities, but I don't know.
And we just did a video with the communications department about the tree planting. We had gotten a grant from the DNR to replant trees that were cut down on the boulevards for people due to emerald ash borer, and how the city was replacing the trees. And we did a little video just to educate people on the process and list the link on the website for more information. So those are the two latest, but we always try to look for something that we can put up there that's good information.
I think that's an important way to reach our community. And I just let the dog in from the laundry room. Can you?
Oh, Dorothy, do you think, was it maybe the coat collection where we did a coat drive? Was it that?
I saw that, and it wasn't, but it was more of a hands-on family activity that I thought was.
Yeah, I think that might have been Nolan and Neil doing their
maybe that was
craft projects.
Okay. It caught my attention, and I thought, what a good idea to give people something to do.
Yeah.
So keep doing that. That's good stuff.
All right. I wrote a couple of things. Find out which communities are currently practicing and what areas they're open to conversation with, other ways of working, and more joint publications and information sharing with peer cities. Right. We'll print theirs. You'll print ours. We'll both link to Facebook. And
as partners, don't forget DNR.
Minnesota DNR.
Minnesota DNR and Ramsey County Watershed. And there's a lot of other partners that we have that evolve into different kind of programming and good for our city that somehow we need to make sure we don't lose track of those folks.
Sure. All right. Other thoughts on kind of a regional presence? What are the things that are necessary there?
Do we know what's going to happen with community gardens this spring? Is that too early to know?
The goal is, unless something changes in a major way, is to have the gardens open and renting out the plots to people as we did before. Even throughout the summer, we were able to have a successful gardening season. So I anticipate that will continue.
Good.
All right. Councilmember Knudsen was big into the regional cooperative because he obviously works in a cooperative model. And so I fully expect he might have a couple of recommendations in his head that he would want on paper. And so we'll be able to give him and other folks an opportunity to kind of weigh in on that. I do think there's a real opportunity to think about longer term thinking about recreation programming as kind of it's a whole system. And I think I shared this story when the pandemic first struck, a lot of people, said no outdoor basketball. And so a city would cover all the basketball hoops. Well, everybody just went to the next city over, and then they closed all the basketball hoops. And you had this game where people just hopped around the metro looking for basketball hoops. And so, people think of it like a region. So there's probably more here. We're just not quite there yet, but I know it's important to the group and I don't want to lose it. But to our next piece, we talked about financial investments, whether it's about funding, whether it's about scholarships. We recommended understanding the YMCA financial position long-term, really kind of a deep dive into their business model. We could potentially offer more for higher levels of service. Are there any things in the financial pieces that we want to make sure that we capture right around funding?
Well, as it relates to our communication piece, I mean, we've seen now the real number that the city council removed from the budget. We saw that number. How that gets communicated to the citizenry, certainly both in our community and other communities, and kind of putting it out there that, if you want park and recreational activities, they cost money, and particularly to bring them back from zero. And I think that's going to be an important component that the residents stay and families stay involved in terms of, hey, it may not be an essential service to some, but to us, it's really important. Mm-hmm. And we hope that you bring it back in some way, shape, or form. And then I think just we've got it right here, identifying any and all funding sources. From something as big as some of the big healthcare facilities. I'll just pick Alina. Could we get 50,000, 100,000 from Alina from a wellness point of view as we identify? Let's see what we got here. Encourage health and wellness. This is the vision for Parks and Rec. I'm just using that as one example. I mean, it's going to be tough to bring back Park and Rec from zero. Or the minimal amount that we have in there for 2 full-time staffers.
One of the things I'll just offer that the Nature Center Task Force talked about as a kind of a long-term recommendation was, do we want to consider a referendum for parks and nature center or natural spaces? That's
brilliant.
It was a big swing, but
yeah. Actually, they're on to something. If I could just quickly, Mike, only because I was here right after it had happened. But for those of you who know or don't know, Maplewood was the very first city back in 1994 to actually have a bond referendum, an open space bond referendum. I was not part of it, but I came to the city right after that. And it was a big swing for $5 million. And by golly, it passed. And so I was part of the group that would come in after and buy up open space parcels in the city. And it was unheard of. Nobody had done that. But Maplewood had the vision and the forethought to do it. Most importantly, the city council and staff at the time, we said, that makes a lot of sense. So, just for pure historical purposes.
I appreciate that.
You bet.
I want to, I think, talk or expand on that a little bit. I was obviously very disappointed when they did a zero budget on Parks and Rec without really any input from the citizens that were impacted. I don't know about what maybe our recommendations, our findings, our surveys, the information we gather might not become proof to the city council that it might be important to provide at least some level of funding, and whether that's through redoing the budget or looking at taxes and they're coming in better than they had thought. But to give us a shot at some of it, or maybe it is a referendum. Because I think people in Maplewood want and appreciate their open spaces and their parks and the programming, and they don't want to see it nickeled and dimed away.
Mhm.
So
I understand that.
we need to do a big marketing sell job to the city council.
Mhm.
Well, I'll say that this is at some level an opportunity to do that, to do just that. I mean, the city council was asking for feedback.
Mhm.
And if it's an important recommendation and the group feels strongly about making it, make it. It doesn't guarantee that it will be accepted or acted upon, but if it's important for you, I wouldn't shy away from making it.
And it might be in the long range section for financing.
Yep.
But I think it needs to be somewhere on the table. If we're going to beg for money, let's beg from the city, for goodness sakes, before we go out.
School districts do it all the time.
But I want to add that before we do that, it's important if we get that survey out so we can hear the voices of just our neighbors to see what they want to do and give them that option before we have our council member speak for the rest of them, right? If we're here planning, but if they don't want to see any of this, then we have to plan accordingly.
Mhm.
And then we plan for when we all come out of this pandemic. What are some of the things that they would be concerned about? What are the
Right.
things that they want to see happen first? We can save our funding and our finance to provide safer and I guess I just lost the word, but safe environment with health cautions, I think that's the way to say it. Take safety and health measures in any of the activities we do. And then also have a backup plan for if we don't have those numbers, we don't meet those numbers of residents coming out to participate. What do we do? So that's something to consider as well.
Mhm. So I'm trying to capture those in the values and philosophy piece, was just to understand more that what the public sees as the value of park and rec services via survey. And then I think probably that medium term is we have to be ready to the need to be flexible if the perceptions and attitudes change.
Mhm.
I'm trying to capture exactly what you said about it. I don't know if I did that exactly right.
You did.
I did or did not?
You did.
Okay, I'm trying, I'm trying. So I appreciate that. So if I get it wrong, don't hesitate to correct me. But any other things in terms of the financing, short, medium, long term? St. Louis Park had that model where they charged an association a flat fee for access to the field as one way of doing it. Are there certain things that you're interested in having staff explore as kind of different ways to fund it? Maybe I'll look to Neil and Audra to advise me here.
We had kind of been working with the marketing department the last year-ish on getting specific, especially for like our special events, those items into specific marketing pamphlets for sponsorships and stuff, really calling them out separately from just overall city donations. And I think that's something to maybe consider, look for, or thought on financing is if there's businesses wanting to do sponsorships and those funds are
Mhm.
coming into the city, giving them an option of maybe where they want to put those sponsorship dollars specifically to maybe help whether it's special events or program related costs or something like that.
Yeah, and
Um,
as Neil said, the special events, because we drew so many people to the 4th of July celebration or the Celebrate Summer events, they had the opportunity to choose a level, and then they would get to come and have a presence at the event, so they were able to be a part of it, and those were gaining some momentum. So that would be, if we do decide to go forward with community outreach events in the future after things settle down and hopefully get back to some sort of normal, that's an opportunity that's there. And just
Yep.
we did have some past success.
And look what you've done with the 4th of July from when it first started. That many years ago, I was involved in just that much of it. And now the amount of sponsorship levels that come in, I mean, that's real money.
Mhm.
And that's we got an outstanding communications and marketing department. Those guys are second to none. And why not utilize their skill sets?
Mhm. Because I don't work in the world of parks and I don't do sponsorships or donations, I guess in my head I didn't think that they were different things, and so it's interesting that I'm going to just tie one thing up here, but I mean maybe we do an inventory of sponsorship opportunities.
Absolutely.
And this is where the a fun run becomes funded by Alina, and something else changes. So I'm gonna come back to here and ask folks to kind of continue to think.
We also have an Adopt a Park program, right, Audra?
We do, yeah.
And is there some way to explore and exploit and expand that might help us?
Sure. Currently, financially, we don't get any money for that, but it's also a way to supplement our park maintenance crew, which is relatively small compared to some other with as many parks and open spaces as we have to take care of, and just getting the people willing to adopt an area of the park and keep an eye out and help us is the non-monetary benefit, but it's definitely a real one.
So Beth added into the chat box, right? We definitely live where we live because of parks and closeness to cities, but I think schools, awesome parks, programs will draw awesome people groups to this city and the area. When people are healthy and active, getting outside, enjoying a program, they thrive. Schools thrive, and people respect part of their taxes going to Park and Rec, which showers down on the whole. So there's that. I think that's well said. I think a lot of folks this group obviously lives that every day, right? It's not just drink, drive, and flush, as a lot of cities often think of, right? There's quality of life things that happen. And so I apologize for being so graphic, but drink, drive, and flush. You drink water, you flush the toilet, you drive. That's what, so it's some cities, that's all they offer. And you know which ones they are.
Yep.
And there's something about a quality of life that happens. So I put that statement into, I'm going to share my screen so you can see where I put it. Maybe.
Into values.
I put it under values and philosophy, right? This, and thank you for putting in the chat box, because I did a cut and paste. So that was easy for me to get that in there. Anything else in terms of the financial piece that we want to tackle?
Oh, I was going to mention, you said that it wasn't a financial thing when you adopt a park, but it really is, because, time is money. So,
Right. Yeah.
and then a group like the Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or a church or wherever can maybe take pride in something. And, maybe they would get a free rental of their pavilion or, something like that. And I think that's a great thing to maybe promote more, or, a few times a year, have a cleanup, or go assess the trails or the equipment. And and have them come back to you, like make it that a total partnership then too, because then they feel like they're contributing. When people contribute and help, it's just so great, right? You feel so great afterwards. So I think that'd be totally worthwhile to pump up and do.
No, I agree, Beth. And we do actually have a couple of scout troops. And I think there is one Girl Scout troop, but definitely Boy Scout groups that have adopted Wakefield and some of our other parks. And we do have the annual cleanup, but to get even more involved and promote it more, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and just offer, I've got almost 5 pages of recommendations. And so this is what, I know it can seem a little disjointed and a little cumbersome in the process is messy, but I want to thank you for getting this far. I'll do a check that it's 6:28. We've got 1 category left, and then you get another bite at the apple kind of to work on your own or to work with somebody else in the group. So thank you for getting through this far. And this is a chance to kind of take a breath. And I'm going to jump to the last category, if that's okay. The last category are these values and philosophy. Part of the tricky part of this is every group has their own operating guidelines, their own operating values. And so in the short run, we recommended identifying, aligning our values with potential partners, documenting and sharing our city values with others, understanding more of what the public sees as the value via our survey. Beth's comments are around, it's not just, but it's really around quality of life issues, and promote that more. I had been meaning to add that sentence in there, or that thought. Being flexible as things change. The other thing I wanted to ask the group is who should be involved in this conversation? Which other groups are we missing? Is there somebody else that we need to include in this values conversation?
Well, definitely, Dorothy, it has to be the Parks and Rec Commission. And I purposely still have up on my screen the vision for Parks and Recreation. This is outstanding work here. The vision, the 1 sentence, and then the 6 different categories. You guys got it. It's right here. Safe and welcoming parks, connect people and places, encourage health and wellness, promote environmental stewardship, inspire creativity and learning, and financial sustainability. I mean, that's got to be our 36 month. That's it. You guys work really hard to put this master plan together, and it's good stuff.
Thank you.
Other groups that we're missing, or we want to include, or any other kind of values conversations that we want to make sure we don't miss. We've got that piece around community input, getting diverse perspectives. Can't spell populations, but you know what I meant.
Okay.
Well, maybe get public safety, since maybe they'll be patrolling, or they're always around, so you might as well have them be the eyes and the ears, what do you call that, on the moment information.
Mike, would the group, and I want to make sure I get the acronym, or is it MAC? Would there be some opportunity to involve that group?
Yeah. Yes. So I will share with the group. So the police department has created a group called the Multicultural Advisory Committee. And it is a group of BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color in the community who don't normally have strong relationships with the police department. The police department recognizes, listen, we want to avoid what happened in Minneapolis this summer. We want to do proactive outreach into communities that are underrepresented or underserved. How do we get that perspective and that voice? And so the police department created this multicultural advisory commission to really tell the police department, here's things that you need to know in order to be better police officers. When you show up at a door and you see this is what's going on. And I'll tell one story. The city of Brooklyn Park, where I used to work, has a high concentration of Liberians. And the Liberian community, a baby shower is the signature event in the community. It's a birthday, it's a wedding, it's a funeral, it is everything rolled into one event. And Liberians will party for 3 days and they won't stop. And if you live next to a house and you're wondering why is this thing going on? These cars keep coming. And they actually told the police department about the power of baby showers and how it was in such a moment to celebrate their community. Our police department responded differently when they knew that a baby shower was going on. And then the Liberian elders would actually communicate when these parties were going to be. And it was changed the dynamic. And what would have normally happened is police would have come in, kicked in the door, and thrown everybody out. Because they got a little bit smarter, they got a little bit more knowledge, they actually responded differently. And so it's a long way of saying I think the MAC is a really powerful tool. And maybe one of our medium-term recommendations is to create our version of the MAC to guide park and rec programming. So sorry, that's my soapbox. But it works. So Audra, how do you want me to say that? Use the police department MAC model?
Yeah, explore, yeah,
Explore, yeah.
Explore.
maybe the word explore, just to see if that might be something that would be useful.
Use of the. I'm going to make it its own bullet point. Okay. Other thoughts?
Now, where do we have it here, Mike? Yeah, slide up. We want to make sure, because we heard loud and clear from the YMCA that their value, let me get my notes from last time. The YMCA leads by using values and volunteer coaches, making sure that however they're in there in one way, shape, or form. And if, yeah, whatever that is, but we have to put them as a potential because they obviously do a great job.
Yep.
How do we use their language or their values and approach?
To strengthen the community, yeah. That's what they strengthen the community. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes you just get the right word and it works. So I appreciate you. Okay. All right. I have no sense for how many recommendations we have. I'll guess it's probably 40. And so I'm going to stop there and say, how does the group want to proceed with refining or adding more? And Neil and Audra, you can weigh in on this. Is this something you want to see and hold and touch and kind of make your own edits and suggestions? Do you want to keep throwing them out there and I'll keep adding? How do you want to include other voices?
Mike, do you think it would be good at this point, because this group, wow, you guys have really put in the work tonight, to maybe take a break and pull together what we've got so far, like you said, Mike, and compile it, go back and check it, and then send it out to the entire group for those who weren't able to make it tonight, and let people have a little time to reflect. And then I guess, Mike, it's up to you how you would want people to let you know if they had something to add. Is that I'm gonna let you decide the best way that works for you.
I'm happy to do whatever. It seems to make some sense. I'll try. I can just manage emails and just have folks.
And then Mike put because it's really just 2 clicks, but unless you went on it, it's literally 2 clicks to get to our task force. And for those, make sure you put that link on there so everybody can go click.
Yep.
Because this is, again, this is good stuff, really good stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot
to
to wrestle. I mean, there's a lot that at play here, and then from a staff side, I think, you can take certain chunks and say, look, this is a work plan for the next 20 days, or not 20 days, but for the next 2 months, or this is the work plan for the next 5 weeks, or whatever that number is. So I'm happy to do that. I'm also happy to stay till 7 and keep taking information. So I want to defer to the will of the group here.
We got our work done early.
I think we have enough.
We do.
I think
It's
we have
great
enough
stuff.
we can share. Yeah, share with the other group, the other members to see what they want to add or take off
Okay.
as well.
I will pledge to fix typos and grammar. I'm not a grammarian at heart, but I know enough to be dangerous. So I'll try to make it, coherent and thoughtful. And Neil and Audra can help me make it look pretty and so. But I thank you to the group. This was really helpful and fun and
Great discussion.
yeah, and there's a lot, and so thank you so much. I appreciate it. I wish I had a kind of a thing to end on, but happy Thanksgiving. Continue to be safe. Be with family and friends, and if it's all on Zoom, this works. And so just do more of this, but stay connected, stay healthy, stay safe, and we will see you guys on December. I want to say the 10th. Does that sound right?
It is. Yes. Wait.
No?
It's the
No,
8th.
It's the 8th.
Yes. I got it on my.
Well, you see on the 8th, but I would imagine that we'll probably have some email dialogue in between that. But thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Great job. Happy Thanksgiving,
everybody.
everybody.
Yep, thank you.
Good night. Thank you.